Hey guys, come follow me time again. We're in Helaman chapters 7 through 12, and this week's entitled in the Come Follow Me manual is Remember the Lord. I think it's got a longer title, but I tend to squish them a bit, make them a bit more, succinct. Because as it points out, now this is written in the introduction in the Come Follow Me manual, and I've written it in my my notes book here because it's so true, and I really, really loved it. The Come Follow Me manual says, in its whole introduction, it says, in many ways, forgetting God is an even bigger problem than not knowing Him. And isn't that so true? That, if you don't know Him, like if you don't know someone, and it compares later too, and I'll bring that up, I think, in insight number 5. Like if you know someone's birthday that's close to you and you forget it, that's worse than if you just didn't know it, right? Because if you didn't know it, then you're like, oh, I didn't know. And they're like, oh, no, you didn't. It's okay. But if you did know it and you forgot it, like your significant other's birthday, and that was a big deal, like you celebrate birthdays as a big deal, or it was your wedding anniversary and it's a big deal, or your children's birthday and it's a big deal, because this is a big deal. Knowing the Lord is a big deal, and you forget it, because you were complacent or you were busy or something, not because you don't like the person or you don't love them. But it happens. So actually, in many ways, forgetting God is an even bigger problem than not knowing Him. So think about that this week as you read through. Anyway, 7 through 11 basically talk about prophets reveal God's will. And if you have a look at it, I'm not going to read any scriptures from this one, or maybe. I like verse 9 of chapter 7. He's talking about, like, he gets up on his garden tower to pray, and he says all these things like, I wish I could live in this day. I wish I could have lived in the days of Nephi that came out first, who I'm named after, because, like, he had it bad. Like, I get it. It's someone else's bad, but he lived among a group of people that loved him and were righteous and stood up for him, and I feel so alone right now. And he says, I wish this, if these my days, it would have been like righteousness in my breath. It was great. And then in verse 9 he says, but behold, I am consigned that these are my days, and that my soul shall be filled with sorrow because of this, the wickedness of my brethren. Now, I could say that a lot of us would feel the same way, and not because of the wickedness of our brethren per se, but we would like to live in another day. But behold, these are our days. These are when we're meant to be. But what's so important about this is you see here, prophets reveal God's will. So these chapters are a great place to see through Nephi's actions, and as you read through, you'll see this. So through his actions, thoughts, and interactions with Jesus, that God's will is revealed to prophets. And can you see this in today's world? Can you see this happening? How can you look for it better? So how would you describe what a prophet is and what they do? Because that's a hard one sometimes. What is a prophet and what do they do? How would you describe that? Notes, let us know. And why do prophets need to speak boldly? Why? Because we're all a bit deaf sometimes, I think. Like not on purpose, but like we're hard of hearing. Not hard-hearted necessarily, just like it's harder to I don't know about that concept. They've got to speak boldly. And to be heard. What have you learnt recently from a living prophet? It's a good one. I've got to listen to an Elder Rasband talk. I just listened to it. We just did Elder Uchtdorf's talk again from conference. So there's a lot of things what did you learn recently from a living prophet? And what can you do better to be in the group of people that you'll read in this chapter specifically that hear the Lord's direction through living prophets, rather than the one who turns and says, no, it's a lot of how can you be better to actually hear the prophet and to hear what happens? And you'll see that through as you read through this week. Like this group of people that actually hear him, that actually stop and say, hey, he's saying something important. And they gather more people and they believe him. And they believe on the 5 witnesses that come in later. And how can we better be in that group of people to be able to hear and know that the Lord's direction is coming from a living prophet? Think about that. All right. That's an insight number 1. Hang around. We're going to go over to Helaman 9.